I didn't have many British things around my house, so the closest prop I could find is this pipe here, this smoking pipe. I think it's more of like intended for weed or something than it
That's what
is
it kind of
for,
looks like. Yeah.
yeah, but it's the closest British thing I have. I think I may have gotten this as a prop for one of my movies or something. I don't know if I actually used it. But yeah, I'll try to incorporate this as best I can.
All right,
Um,
you go for that.
this was actually an exact tie. I had the same issue with Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, and I posted that 3 times to break the tie. With this one, I didn't want to bother with that. I was just like, fuck it, I'll just leave it as a tie. Hopefully, someone will break it. But
Hmm.
I figured we might as well do this because I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to do Children of the Corn or more Stephen King stuff.
I assumed Children of the Corn was going to win, so I watched that. So I had to watch Village of the Damned today. So I watched them both, but we're good.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like you would think it's so much more popular, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I would figure there's like a lot of people who haven't even heard of this movie, or maybe just heard of like the John Carpenter version or something,
Right.
you know. But yeah, I'm glad we saw it. It's a good movie. I only saw it once, so I'm glad I was able to see it again.
So I've seen this one time, probably 1992 when I taped it on VHS. Haven't seen it since, although I've owned the DVD probably since the early 2000s. But it's been 28 years or so since I saw this last.
I do you know why you haven't rewatched it? I couldn't say why I didn't rewatch it.
No, I have no clue. I've always remembered that it was good, but I really didn't remember anything about it other than the eyes of the kids. That's about it.
I remember liking it a lot. I couldn't tell you why I never gave it another shot because it's short, and
Yeah.
it's good. So those are two good reasons to rewatch a movie. But here we are. To me, the pacing of this movie and the script are the two highlights of it. It is just so economical. And there's a lot of tropes and a lot of obstacles that filmmakers put in the way for the sake of drama and tension that this movie just bypasses, and it doesn't lose a beat. There are no characters that say, hey, like, you're crazy, we can't do this, what are you talking about? There's no authority figure that comes in and is a curmudgeon and says you can't do that. What did you think about the lack of obstacles in these characters figuring things out and moving the plot along very quickly?
Well, the thing that came to mind for me is, first of all, I did think the tension was building all along because, like I said, I haven't seen it in almost 3 decades, but I obviously knew that the children were the issue here. But the first half of the film, basically, maybe a little less than that, these kids aren't born yet, or they're infants yet. So, it's weird. I kind of had this. I know it's a horror movie, but I had this sense of safety. Like I know nothing's going to happen right now because these kids aren't here yet, and they don't really have any protectors or anything like that. So I'm not looking for any jump scares or anything. Um, but I still thought the tension was kind of nice. I'm not sure how that even happened, considering that I knew nothing was going to happen, at least for a while.
We take it from the beginning. The brother-in-law, Alan, is talking to our main character, George Sanders, and they do their best to let you know how peaceful and tranquil this small village is. You see the sheep and you hear the music before whatever supernatural or phenomenon, whatever it is that comes in and makes the whole village fall asleep.
Hmm.
The timeout, I guess they label it later on in the film. What did you think of the fact that whatever happened wasn't explained at the beginning and it wasn't even explained at the end?
I honestly didn't even think about it. To me, my assumption was that it was some sort of outer space thing. I thought it was really cool when they had the perimeter. They knew exactly where to go. They brought that the bird in the bird cage in, and they could just tell, okay, over here it's safe, over here it's not. Um, but the fact that, to me, again, I always assumed even before they were hinting at it later on that it was some sort of outer space thing. But yeah, I didn't think of it that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I like that they kept it with the characters in the village, but they still let you know that this is grander than what we're seeing. Like, keep it with the characters that we're following. We're invested in them, but every now and then they checked in with the house secretary of the UK and let you know, like, hey, this is a global thing going on, even though we're just staying with these few characters here in the village. But I like the fact that they didn't try to explain too much and just kept it more grounded. Because the more they explained, the more sillier I guess it would have gotten with the premise. I love it when they put actors like Sanders in these types of movies where you have either actors that are too old for the lead in mainstream movies or actors that are character actors because they don't have the looks to be a leading man, but they're really good actors and they can elevate material that way may otherwise seem a little bit silly. And I think George Sanders does that pretty well in this movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just to harken back to your previous point about the uh, lack of explanation, I think that uh, may have bogged down the film a little bit. Like I said, it's only 77 minutes long, so it's really over really fast. But it just leaves it up to our own imagination as to what happened. It makes you ask those questions, and I can imagine kids, 12-year-old kids, coming out of the theater in 1960 asking that same question. But they're talking about it, they're thinking about it because it was a good movie. So it's going to make you ask those questions, and that's fine.
Alan goes to the village once Sanders conks out during their phone conversation, and again, this is it's done. It's simple, but it's done so well in that they figure out what's going on pretty easily. There's no dumb characters in there to make it easier for the audience to follow along. There's no authority figures saying like, get your ass back here and don't go to that village or anything like that. He just checks out the perimeter. He sees the cop go into the village and collapse. And he's like, okay, I'm not going where that cop went. I'm here and I'm safe. He's there and he passed out. Let's draw like a perimeter right here. And the army came. They did the safety protocols. They sent some guy in. He fell down. They did the bird test, like you said. The only mishap they did was with the pilot.
Yeah, poor pilot.
Yeah, the thing that sucks for the pilot is that he crashes, and like a minute later, everyone wakes up.
Yeah.
He was like a minute away from like being fine. So I thought that was pretty funny. But aside from the pilot, I like the way they handled everything, and they weren't afraid to make their characters be smart and figure these things out. I think that's what really helps the movie move along very quickly as well. They go into the village. The army's there. The doctor's there checking in on people. They did explain this a little bit in the dialogue, but it does seem a little implausible that there weren't more fatalities or concussions or anything like that.
Well, no one seems to have come to any harm. A few cuts and bruises where they fell. Lucky no one was in their bath. They might have been drowned.
The doctor throws in a cursory line in there. But it does seem a little suspicious that there weren't many people hurt by it. But I guess that wasn't.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. If everybody in town collapses, some people are going to hit their heads on furniture, or somebody may have been up on a ladder or on a roof. Who knows? But yeah, or in a car. But yeah.
Yeah, even if you're just standing in your living room, like you fall down, you're gonna conk your head. And yeah, I think there was the actor. I'm forgetting his name right now. I'll put it on the screen if it doesn't come to me.
Is it Joe Spinell?
No.
Oh, okay.
Joe Spinell?
I think he had like he died because I think he had that disease. I can't think of what it's called, where you cut yourself and it's hard to stop bleeding. And they think he bled out. Just
hemophiliac.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you're right. I think there was another actor like in the 60s or something like that who had a similar thing. You know what? It may have been
it's William
a TV
Holden.
actor. William Holden. That's it. Because I watched a movie called The Earthling, and I remember reading that about him about 1981 or so.
Yeah, he got drunk and he collapsed in his living room. He just cut his head, but because he was passed out, he just bled out and died. It's such a sad way to go because he was a great actor. He was in a lot of good movies. Bridge Over River Kwai, Network, a lot of great movies. So you figured something. Yeah, you figured stuff like that would happen, but I'm willing to let it go because the movie is really good. But it seemed a little implausible. There weren't be a few more fatalities because you didn't even have to show it. You could just have it thrown out in the dialogue that, hey, X amount of people died. This movie does a lot of like, not necessarily jump cuts, but jumps in time. Every few scenes, they're jumping ahead. So this is 2 months later. Women who could get pregnant became pregnant. We see a virgin get pregnant, a woman whose husband was away for a year comes back and his wife is pregnant. He's understandably pissed off, like what the hell's going on? Sanders' wife gets pregnant. They do mention this a few times, so they don't completely ignore it.
And all the more so because I'm old enough to appreciate it. I married late in life.
But there's a significant age gap with Sanders and his wife. The
Sure
actress that plays her is 28, and he's 54. So
I don't think much has changed since in today's movies or TV shows either. Yeah.
No, but at least they didn't ignore it. And a lot of stuff nowadays, they would just ignore that age gap. So yeah, it was a miraculous conception there. But yeah, so all these women are pregnant. They even get the vicar to admit that a bunch of women went to him and admitted they were pregnant.
4 of them have been to see me. One of them is only 17.
We jump ahead until David is played by Martin Stevens. I thought he did a really good performance. He was also in The Innocents. Have you seen that one?
No, I read that. I read about that a little bit today. No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, I remember I'd asked you if you wanted to do The Innocents. I forgot if you said you saw it or not, but he was really good in that too. Really good child actor. I thought he was really good. But yeah, so what did you think of the child actors in it? Did they come off menacing once they did make their appearance on screen?
To me, they reminded me of like Nazi Hitler Youth. You know, they're all blonde hair, blue eyes, and they're all very similar looking. So, yeah, there's something creepy about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they did a good job. In fact, I read that one of the actors played a female and a male role in this movie. They put a wig on him, and he played 2 characters.
I know David as a baby looked like a girl. Maybe that was it. I'm not sure who it was.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was that scene actually, because I thought that was a girl the first time we saw him. So
yeah, and I was like, David, what? How androgynous are these kids? It's, you know, it definitely looked like a girl. I'm not sure if you watch many giallos, but that's a trope in giallo films as well. It's like young, blonde, creepy kids who are killers. I don't know where giallo got it from, but in a lot of those Italian films, there's a lot of killers.
Yeah, I've seen plenty. I'm not a huge fan of them, but yeah, I've seen plenty.
3 years later pass, and then they have a big meeting. They label what happened the timeout. We get some exposition where they talk about all these different countries where it's happening and the kids are dying or being killed. And they make it seem a little bit more global, and they discuss what they're going to do. What did you think of this like war room type scene and them making this a little bit bigger than just the village?
I like that scene just simply because it gave us some more information. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was, I think they said 4 or 5 places around the world that this was happening, like Australia, Alaska, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they said only 2 places that these kids lived. Australia, they died for some reason, and up in Alaska, there was some sort of, they killed the babies or something like that. So we just had Russia and Great Britain where they lived. Is that correct? You recall?
Yeah. One place there were 30 of them that died as babies, and 2 other places they were killed because they were born looking different than the parents. It's like, okay, where are these? You know, they were creeped out by the fact. I think like one may have been somewhere in Africa, and the other was in Alaska, where it's just like, where are these blonde hair, blue eyes babies coming from?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. It helped world build a little bit, and it got you a little bit more perspective, like you said, more background. We finally see the kids kill someone. It's pretty cool. The only thing that I thought didn't age that well is when they use their powers, they stare. It's with their eyes. But in order to do that, you can't blink. And it's hard for people not to blink in general, or you'll go blind. You have to blink to add fluid to your eyes. But for kids, that's going to be impossible as well. So they use still images as opposed to like actual footage. And cutting back from the still images to the actual footage, it's very jarring, and you know it's stills.
You
And
could
that
definitely
really,
tell, yeah.
did that detract a lot for you, or you just kind of let it go?
Maybe a little bit, but yeah, I'd also read something where they wanted the kids to keep their heads really still, so they put some sort of vice on their head in the back to keep them from moving as well.
Jesus. That doesn't sound pleasant. But I don't know what would be the point in that, because they use still images anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. And I thought I read that because their eyes, obviously, they used some sort of reverse image. I don't know what they did, but they did something. But apparently, in the version that was released in the UK, they didn't do that to the eyes. I think the eyes were just normal looking because they thought that was too scary, and it would get a worse rating or something like that. So I think there was actually two versions of this film that were out there.
Censorship laws are so weird. I also read that the one woman who's implied, she didn't actually say that she was a virgin, that was one of the reasons for the delays, because of a virgin birth, and religious people were getting outraged about that. It's just like, people have too much time on their hands. I mean,
Uh-huh.
come on, like, this is what you're going to get outraged about. But yeah, so the driver almost hits one of the girls, and from there they did a group hypnosis thing where they made him kill himself. This is kind of weird, because so they do the group hypnosis, they make him kill himself because he almost killed one of them. So it's kind of they're kind of being defensive a little bit. The mother, David's mother, was there, and it seemed like they did a brain wipe on her because she didn't really know what was going on in court. She didn't remember much. So it's implied that they just like wiped her memory of it. But in the very next scene, they kill the guy's brother because he comes at them with a shotgun, and they don't do the brain wipe. So in one scene, they try to cover up their tracks. They don't want people to know what's going on. In the very next scene, they're fine with everybody knowing, and it's out in the open, that these children are like these mass murderers, or at least multi-murderers.
Maybe as time passes, they were getting bolder and bolder and didn't care anymore. Who knows?
It was literally in the next scene, though. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, from there, the guy's friends, they're all in the bar. They're getting frustrated, and then they say, "Hey, we're gonna go and torch these guys." They didn't grab their pitchforks, but they grabbed their hay and fire. And the ringleader gets hypnotized into burning himself, and the rest of them get put in a trance and watch him burn. Then Alan goes in, and for his trouble, he almost gets lobotomized. What were you thinking at this point? Were you ever on board with the kids? Did you ever empathize with them? Did this sway you in any way? What were you thinking at this part in the movie?
No, I don't think I was, because at this point I'm thinking something's up with these kids, and there's just this overall feeling of menace to them. So, no, to me they were the bad guys, and they needed to go in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't think that before this sequence, they definitely changed from these monotone, mysterious kids into just flat out killers at this point.
Yeah, once they start killing people, that changes things.
It does change the equation a bit. We have David giving an exposition to his father, and seems like it's the plot of 90% of all sci-fi horrors and thrillers, and it's, we are going to spread out among you. We're going to look and sound like you, and then we're going to lay in the weeds until we take over. I mean, how many horror movies and sci-fi horror and thrillers are like this? The Thing, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Ex Machina, just on and on and on and on. I think I don't know, I think it's part of like human psychology, where it's just like the paranoia of someone or you think is really like somebody like nefarious, or I don't know. It seems to be like a big trope in a lot of sci-fi, though.
Right, yep. I was gonna say, this movie reminded me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I just watched a couple of weeks ago. So,
yeah, which version?
The '78 version. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like the '78 and the original. The others, I'm not that keen on. So. Yeah, from there we have the climactic ending, which I think it's great. It's one of the all-time great endings, where Sanders basically goes in there with the bomb, and then sacrifices himself and blows up the kids as well. It was all set up pretty well, where it was a reasonable um, setup for them all to be in one location, and it was a reasonable setup for them to trust him. And then they did set up like the brick wall,
Hmm.
and they did talk about their powers and the limitation of their powers. So it was all set up really well. The only thing I didn't love about it was leading up to it. It was telegraphed too much. We didn't have to see him build the bomb. I think just like them looking at the bag and then us seeing like the brick wall in his mind break and then the bomb behind it, that was plenty. We didn't have to see him build a bomb. I would have preferred it if the wife didn't figure it out, because then it would have been like, you would have been thinking, oh my gosh, what's she gonna think when she finds out? Actually seeing her react, it kind of detracted for me. So I didn't like the build up to it, but I thought the end was great. What did you think of the climax?
Yeah, I love the ending. I guess, like I said, I hadn't seen this in 30 years, so I really couldn't remember anything about it. But I love the ending. I love the kids knew something was up, but they couldn't figure it out, which was kind of cool. The only thing that to me that detracted a little bit was the explosion was kind of lame. I wanted something bigger and broader, but it looked like there was just a little fire at the end. So it obviously worked, but I think they make it a little bigger.
Hmm. I don't know how big that bomb could. It's just a little bad. I don't know about bombs. I don't know how
Right.
theoretically how big of an explosion that bag could have blown up. But yeah, it was a good ending. Like I said, the buildup just didn't do it for me, but the actual scene and the ramifications of it, like him actually loving his son and wanting it to work. And I think it worked out that he sacrificed himself, but because of him, other people died. So if he would have lived, you wouldn't have as much sympathy for him, because if he would have listened to the general, then a lot of people wouldn't have died leading up to that. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a definite recommend. I think it's a must see for any horror sci-fi fan. I assume you agree as well.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it again. It's been far too long. It's a good movie.
Yeah, and
Definitely
if
recommended.
yeah, and if anyone hasn't seen it in a while like us, what are you waiting for? Go watch it now.